You know, there's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from saying yes to everyone else's problems while your own life crumbles beneath your feet. It's not the exhaustion of hard work, it's the exhaustion of misplaced priorities. And I want to talk to you today about something that might sound selfish on the surface, but it's actually the most selfless thing you can ever do, taking care of yourself first. Think about this for a moment. When you board an airplane, what does the flight attendant tell you during the safety demonstration? They tell you to put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. Not because you're more important than the person next to you, but because you cannot help anyone if you're gasping for air. You become useless to everyone around you. This is not a metaphor. This is a fundamental principle of survival that applies to every single area of your life. Yet what do we see in society? We see people running themselves into the ground, draining their emotional reserves, sacrificing their own well-being, their dreams, their health, and their sanity, all in the name of being there for people. And the tragedy of it all is that these people often aren't even being thanked. Instead, they're being drained further, taken for granted, and forgotten the moment they stop being useful. I've watched countless individuals destroy their own futures because they couldn't say no. They had talents that could have taken them places, but instead they used those talents to build others up while their own foundations cracked. They had dreams they could have pursued, but instead they poured their energy into someone else's vision. And the saddest part, the people they helped often moved on, forgot about them, and built their success on the back of the helper's sacrifice. Let me be very clear about something. I'm not telling you to become a selfish person who doesn't care about humanity. I'm not telling you to abandon people in need or to stop showing compassion. What I'm telling you is far more important than that. I'm telling you that you cannot pour from an empty cup. And right now, if you're reading this and feeling that familiar heaviness in your chest, it's because you've already poured out everything you have and you're still trying to give more. The problem starts with how we've been conditioned to think about sacrifice and virtue. We've been taught that the greatest people are those who give the most, who help the most, who sacrifice the most. But this teaching, when taken to its extreme, becomes a weapon against you. It becomes the tool that keeps you trapped in a cycle of helping others while neglecting yourself. Think about the people you admire most. Do you admire them because they destroyed themselves helping others? Or do you admire them because they built something, achieved something, created something, and then from that position of strength, they were able to help others? There's a critical difference. The successful people in history, the ones who actually made a lasting impact, weren't the ones who gave away everything they had before they had anything. They were the ones who first built their foundation, secured their position, and then from that place of strength, they extended a hand to others. The reason I say this with such conviction is because I've seen what happens when people don't learn this lesson. I've seen brilliant minds destroyed by the burden of helping others. I've seen talented individuals waste decades of their lives on people who didn't deserve an hour of their time. I've seen families torn apart because one person decided that everyone else's problems were more important than their own family's stability. And here's what really gets me. These helpers, these self-sacrificing individuals, they often feel guilty when they finally try to take care of themselves. They feel guilty for saying no. They feel guilty for prioritizing their own goals. They feel guilty for putting their own health first. And this guilt is not coming from their conscience. It's coming from the conditioning they've received from a society that has weaponized compassion against them. So let me ask you directly, why are you prioritizing someone else's peace of mind over your own? Why is someone else's comfort more important than your own stability? Why is someone else's dream more worthy of your time and energy than your own aspiration? And if you can't answer these questions satisfactorily, then you need to have a serious conversation with yourself about what you're doing and why. The first step in saving yourself is to understand that self-preservation is not selfish. When you take care of yourself, when you invest in your education, your health, your skills, your emotional well-being, you're not being selfish. You're actually preparing yourself to be more capable of helping others in the future. You're investing in your ability to make a real difference in the world. Think of it this way: a doctor who doesn't sleep, who neglects their own health, who works themselves to exhaustion, that doctor becomes a liability. Their judgment becomes impaired. Their ability to save lives decreases. The patients who come to them might actually be harmed by a doctor who hasn't taken care of themselves. On the other hand, a doctor who sleeps well, exercises, eats properly, and maintains their own mental health is a far better doctor. They can save more lives. They can help more patients. Their self-care directly translates into better service for others. This principle applies to you, no matter what your profession or role is. When you take care of yourself, you become better equipped to genuinely help others. When you neglect yourself, you become a burden to those around you. You become someone who needs help instead of someone who can give it. Now I want to talk about the different ways that people become helpers at the expense of themselves. And I want you to identify which category you fall into, because understanding your pattern is the first step toward breaking it. There are those who help because they were taught that their worth is determined by what they do for others. These individuals grew up in environments where love was conditional, where they were valued only when they were useful, only when they were solving problems, only when they were making life easier for the people around them. As adults, they carry this pattern forward. They believe deep down that if they stop helping, they will stop being loved. So they keep helping even when it destroys them, because the alternative, being alone, being unloved, feels unbearable. If this is you, I want you to hear this. Your worth is not determined by what you do. You are valuable simply because you exist. You don't need to earn love through service. Real love, authentic love, doesn't require you to destroy yourself to maintain it. And if the only way you can keep someone in your life is by sacrificing your own well-being, then that relationship is toxic and you need to let it go. Then there are those who help because they need to feel needed. These individuals have built their entire identity around being the helper, the solver, the one people turn to in times of crisis. Stopping this pattern means losing their identity, and that's terrifying. So they keep helping, they keep solving, they keep being the person everyone calls at 3 in the morning, because if they weren't doing that, they wouldn't know who they are. If this is you, I want you to understand something crucial. Your identity cannot be based on being useful to others. You need to develop a sense of self that exists independent of what you do for people. You need hobbies, interests, goals, and dreams that are just for you. You need to know who you are when no one needs anything from you. Because if you don't, you'll spend your entire life running on a treadmill, exhausted, wondering why no one seems to appreciate all that you do. And then there are those who help because they feel obligated. Maybe someone helped them once, and now they feel they owe the world. Maybe they were raised with religious or cultural teachings that emphasize sacrifice and service. Maybe they simply feel a responsibility toward humanity. Whatever the reason, they help out of a sense of duty rather than genuine desire. And this is perhaps the most dangerous category, because obligatory helping without boundaries is a recipe for complete burnout. If this is you, I want to tell you something that might be controversial. You don't owe anyone your life. You don't owe the world your sacrifice. You don't owe your family your future. You can be a good person. You can be compassionate. You can be moral. And you can still say no. In fact, saying no when you need to is part of being a good person, because it means you're being honest. You're not pretending to be superhuman. You're not making promises you can't keep. You're being real. And that's actually more valuable than any amount of false sacrifice. Now let me talk about what happens when you finally decide to save yourself first. And I want to prepare you, because this decision comes with consequences that you need to be ready for. When you start saying no, some people will be upset. People who are used to you saying yes. People who benefited from your self-sacrifice. People who had grown comfortable with you being their solution. These people will not take kindly to your new boundaries. They might call you selfish. They might make you feel guilty. They might even create drama to try to pull you back into your old patterns. This is where your strength will be tested, because you have to decide, is their comfort more important than your survival? Is their approval more important than your peace of mind? Is their happiness more important than your future? For most of you, the answer should be no. But I understand that saying no is hard. It's hard because we're social creatures and we care what people think. It's hard because we've been conditioned to believe that our value lies in what we do for others. It's hard because we fear abandonment and rejection. But here's what I want you to understand. The people who truly matter in your life, the people who genuinely love you, they will understand and respect your boundaries. They might not like them at first, but they will respect them. And if someone can't respect your boundaries, then they've already shown you who they are. And who they are is someone who doesn't truly care about your well-being. So when you set boundaries and people get upset, you're actually doing something beautiful. You're filtering out the people who are only in your life for what you could do for them. You're creating space for the people who actually love you for who you are, not for what you provide. Think about this realistically. If a person only sticks around when you're useful, when you're solving their problems, when you're making their life easier, that's not a relationship, that's exploitation, and you deserve better than that. Now let's talk about the practical side of saving yourself first, because understanding the concept intellectually is one thing. Actually implementing it in your life is something entirely different. First, you need to get clear on what you actually want from your life, not what others want for you, not what you think you should want, but what do you actually want? What are your dreams? What are your goals? What would make you feel fulfilled? Most people who are chronic helpers have never even asked themselves these questions. Their entire life has been about other people's dreams and goals and needs. So when I ask them what they want, they don't know. They've lost touch with their own desires. This is a critical problem, because you cannot save yourself if you don't know what you're saving yourself. So take some time, really take time, sit with yourself and ask, if I only had myself to answer to, if I only had to make myself happy, what would I do with my life? What would I pursue? What would I create? What would I learn? What kind of person would I become? Write these things, don't filter them. Don't judge them. Just write them down, because these are the seeds of your own life and you need to nurture them. Second, you need to learn to say no without guilt. And this is perhaps the hardest skill to develop, but it's absolutely essential. Start with the small requests that you would normally automatically say yes to. When someone asks you to do something, pause. Don't immediately say yes. Take a moment and ask yourself, do I actually want to do this? Does this align with my priority? Do I have the energy and resources to do this well? If the answer is no, then say no. And don't over-explain. Don't make excuses. Don't apologize excessively. Just say, no, I'm not able to do that right now. That's it. You don't need to give them a detailed explanation. You don't need to justify your decision. You don't need to make them feel better about your no. And I guarantee you, the first time you say no without guilt, without over-explaining, without trying to soften the blow, you will feel a shift inside you. It won't feel comfortable because you're breaking a pattern, but you'll feel something that's been missing from your life for a long time. A sense of autonomy, a sense of control, a sense that your life belongs to you, not to everyone else. Third, you need to invest in yourself. And I mean really invest, not just financially, but with your time, your energy, your focus. Maybe you've always wanted to learn a skill. Maybe you've always wanted to read more books. Maybe you've always wanted to travel. Maybe you've always wanted to improve your health. Whatever it is, start doing it and don't feel guilty about it. This is not a waste of time. This is not selfish. This is self-preservation. When you invest in yourself, you're sending a message to your subconscious, to the world, and to the people around you. My life matters. My growth matters. My happiness matters. And this message starts shifting everything. It starts shifting how you think about yourself. It starts shifting how others treat you. It starts shifting your entire life trajectory. Fourth, you need to create strong boundaries around your time and energy. And these boundaries need to be non-negotiable. Maybe it means you don't take calls after 8 in the evening. Maybe it means you don't discuss other people's problems first thing in the morning. Maybe it means you dedicate certain days to yourself and you don't answer requests on those days. Maybe it means you have a set amount of time that you're willing to help people with, and after that you're not available. Whatever your boundaries are, make them clear, communicate them to the people in your life, and then enforce them consistently. Because boundaries without enforcement are just suggestions, and people will keep testing them. And here's the thing about boundaries: when you set them and enforce them, people learn to respect them. They learn that you're serious. They learn that you won't budge, and most of them will adapt. Yes, some will leave, but they were never truly part of your life anyway. Fifth, you need to separate your identity from your usefulness. This is deep work and it takes time, but it's absolutely necessary. Ask yourself, if I woke up tomorrow and couldn't help anyone anymore, if I couldn't solve any problems, if I couldn't do anything for anyone, who would I be? Would I still be a valuable person? Would I still have worth? The answer needs to be yes, because if it's not, then you've let your usefulness define you, and you're in a very fragile position. The moment you can't be useful, and there will come a time when you can't be useful, whether due to illness, age, or circumstance, your entire identity will collapse. So develop aspects of yourself that have nothing to do with what you do for others. Maybe it's art, maybe it's learning, maybe it's spirituality, maybe it's friendship, maybe it's humor. Whatever it is, cultivate, because these are the parts of yourself that will sustain you when you can't be useful to others anymore. Now I want to talk about something that's rarely discussed when we talk about helping others: the spiritual and moral dimensions of protecting yourself. There's a misconception that spirituality or morality demands that you sacrifice yourself, that to be a good person, you must be willing to give everything. And this misconception has done immense damage to countless individuals. But true spirituality, true morality, is not about self-destruction. It's about balance. It's about wisdom. It's about understanding when to give and when to protect. It's about knowing the difference between genuine compassion and codependency dressed up as love. Think about the great spiritual and moral leaders throughout history. Did they destroy themselves helping others, or did they build themselves first, and then from that foundation of strength, they made a difference? Every meaningful change in the world has come from people who were strong enough to stand on their own, people who had their own vision, their own conviction, their own resources. These people then used that strength to help others. So when you protect yourself, when you save yourself first, when you invest in your own growth and well-being, you're not turning away from spirituality or morality. You're actually moving toward it. You're becoming someone who is capable of making a real difference. Let me also address something specific: the guilt that comes when you finally start putting yourself first. This guilt is real. It's powerful. It will whisper to you constantly. It will tell you that you're being selfish. It will tell you that you should feel bad for thinking about yourself. It will remind you of all the people who need help and how you're abandoning them. But I want you to understand where this guilt is coming from. It's coming from patterns that were installed in you long before you had the ability to choose. It's coming from people who benefited from your self-sacrifice. It's coming from a society that profits from your exhaustion. This guilt is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. This guilt is a sign that you're breaking a pattern. And breaking patterns is uncomfortable. Breaking patterns feels wrong because you're so used to the old way. But discomfort is not the same as wrongdoing. You can feel guilty and still be making the right choice. In fact, if you're not feeling some guilt, you're probably not stretching yourself enough. So acknowledge the guilt, feel it, and then move forward anyway. This is courage. This is strength. This is what it takes to save yourself. Now let me talk about the relationships that will actually improve when you start prioritizing yourself. You see, there's a common misconception that if you set boundaries and stop sacrificing yourself, your relationships will suffer. The truth is actually the opposite. Your relationships will improve, but only with the right people. When you stop being the perpetual helper, when you stop solving everyone's problems, something interesting happens. People start treating you differently. They start seeing you as an equal rather than as a resource. They start having to solve their own problems. And in doing so, they grow. They start appreciating you differently because you're no longer taken for granted. And the relationships that were based purely on your usefulness, those will end. And good riddance. Those weren't real relationships anyway. Those were transactions, and one-sided transactions at that. But the relationships that matter, the ones with people who genuinely care about you, those relationships become deeper and more real when you set boundaries. Because now you're relating as two whole people, not as a helper and a beneficiary. Think about the people in your life that you truly respect and admire. I bet you respect them not because of how much they sacrifice, but because they're competent, they're strong, they're pursuing their own goals and dreams. And paradoxically, these are often the people who are most generous, most helpful, most kind, because they're not doing it out of desperation or guilt. They're doing it from a place of abundance. That's what you need to become. Someone who helps from a place of abundance, not from a place of desperation. Here's something I want you to consider. What if the greatest gift you can give to the world is becoming the best version of yourself? Think about it. If you could either spend your life solving other people's problems while your own potential goes untapped, or if you could develop your talents, pursue your dreams, and become excellent at something which would actually benefit the world more. The answer is clear. Your excellence benefits the world more than your exhaustion. When you become excellent at something, when you achieve something, when you create something of value, you contribute to humanity, you add value to the world. You create opportunities for others, you inspire others. You become a model of what's possible. But when you spend your entire life helping others while neglecting yourself, you deprive the world of your excellence. You deprive the world of what you could have created, could have achieved, could have contributed. So saving yourself first is not just about your own well-being. It's about your responsibility to the world. It's about making sure that your gifts are actually used to their fullest potential. Let me be direct about something else. There are people in your life who are taking advantage of your goodness. Whether they're doing it consciously or unconsciously doesn't really matter. The fact is they're benefiting from your self-sacrifice, and they have a vested interest in keeping you exactly where you are. These people will fight you when you try to change. They will make you feel guilty. They will create drama. They will tell you that you're changing, that you're not the person they used to know, that you're becoming selfish. And all of this is true. You are changing. You are becoming a person who values yourself. And yes, to them, that probably does feel selfish. But you need to be prepared for this. You need to understand that some of the people closest to you might not support your journey. And you need to be strong enough to move forward anyway. This is where you have to make a choice about what you value more, keeping people happy or keeping yourself alive. Because let's be honest, if you continue on the path of constant self-sacrifice, you will not survive intact. You might physically survive, but parts of you will die. Your dreams will die. Your potential will die. Your spirit will wither. Is that what you want? Is that the legacy you want to leave? That you had so much potential, but you gave it all away to keep others happy? I don't think so. I think deep down, you know you're meant for something more. So here's what I want you to do. Starting today, starting right now, make a decision, a real decision, not a wish, not a hope. A decision. Decide that you're going to prioritize yourself. Decide that your life is just as important as anyone else's life. Decide that your dreams matter. Decide that your well-being is a priority. Then start with one thing. Just one. Maybe it's saying no to something you would normally say yes to. Maybe it's dedicating 1 hour a week to something you've always wanted to do. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation with someone about boundaries. one thing. That's all. Start there and then build on it. Build slowly but steadily. Because you're not just changing your behavior, you're rewiring how you see yourself and your place in the world. Remember, you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give what you don't have. You cannot help others effectively if you're drowning yourself. This is not philosophy. This is fact. So save yourself first, protect yourself first, build yourself first. And then from that position of strength, from that foundation of wholeness, from that place of abundance, then you can genuinely help others. This is not selfish. This is wisdom. This is strength. This is what it means to be truly valuable in this world. Your life matters. Your dreams matter. You matter. Now go live like you believe that.